Let me tell you something that happened to me not too long ago. I've been married for 40 years, happily, or so I thought. I'm 64 now, and my wife, Diane, is 62. Ours wasn't just your run-of-the-mill marriage. It was something rare. We were healthy, financially set, and proud parents of 2 amazing daughters who went on to bless us with 3 beautiful grandkids. Looking back, I used to think of Diane and me as more than just husband and wife. We were true partners. Soulmates, even. The kind of bond that younger couples would look at with envy. So you might be wondering, what could possibly go wrong in a picture-perfect life like that? One Saturday morning, the sun was out, the sky was clear, and everything felt full of promise. I was gearing up for a round of golf with my buddies, easily my favorite part of the week. A little escape from the routine, a chance to breathe. I kissed Diane goodbye, grabbed my clubs, and headed out the door with a smile on my face, completely unaware that everything was about to change. As I pulled into the golf course parking lot, I suddenly realized I'd forgotten my golf club repair tool, an absolute must-have. My friends were expecting me to bring it, and I'd left it sitting at home like a rookie. Frustrated, I turned the car around and made the quick drive back. When I got out and walked up to the house, I noticed Victor at the front door. He's a young guy, early 30s maybe, and someone we've leaned on now and then for help around the house. Always dependable, polite, and confident. Honestly, we were lucky to know him. But seeing him there that day caught me off guard. He'd already been by just the day before, which raised a red flag. Had Diane asked him to come back for something? Or had she invited him without telling me? Feeling a little uneasy, I let myself in quietly. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. But what I walked into, I'll never forget. Right there in the living room was Diane, my wife, standing in nothing but her underwear. And Victor, shirtless, stepping out of the guest bathroom. Both of them froze the moment they saw me. Their faces said it all, stunned, guilty, caught off guard. Now, to be fair, I didn't walk in on anything explicit. But the energy in the room? The smell of sweat and something, intimate, hanging in the air? It didn't take a genius to figure out what almost happened, or maybe already had. Diane tried to play it cool. She asked why I was home so early. I didn't answer her. I looked straight at Victor instead. This was the first time I'd ever seen him look rattled. He stammered out some excuse, and Diane immediately jumped in to defend him, raising her voice like she was trying to take charge. She said she'd called him over to clean the pool. I stared at her. The pool? I said. Didn't he just do that yesterday? She tried to recover, said something about the job not being done properly. But it was clear even she didn't buy her own story. The more she talked, the more ridiculous it sounded. Victor looked like he'd seen a ghost. I pointed at him and told him, in no uncertain terms, that I knew exactly what he was up to. I didn't have hard proof, but I didn't need it. And I made it very clear, if I ever caught him near my house again, there'd be consequences. He didn't say a word. Just grabbed his shirt, pulled it over his head, and bolted for his car. Diane tried to reason with me. Begged me to stop accusing her, called me crazy, even said I might have some kind of mental issue. But I wasn't the one acting strange. I wasn't the one caught in my underwear with a half-naked man on a Saturday morning. And here's the thing, I never doubted her before that day. Not once. We had a strong marriage. I trusted her completely. But something about the way they looked, the energy in the room, the tension in their bodies, it screamed at me. She tried to turn it around on me, said she'd tell the kids and even our grandson, like I was the one being irrational. And that outfit she had on? Not her usual modest sunbathing gear. This was something different. Something meant for someone else. I figured she'd give me a clear explanation, something simple. So when she told me she was just planning to sunbathe and maybe take a swim, I was thrown off. It didn't make sense. The weather was chilly, not exactly pool weather, and in all our years together, I'd never once seen her get in the water when it was that cold. Something about it just didn't sit right. She tried to throw me off, to shake my confidence by pushing back hard, acting like I was the one being unreasonable. But I didn't budge. My gut was screaming at me, and I wasn't going to ignore it this time. Victor, the kid's only 19. We've known him for about 3 years now. And the more I thought about it, the more I wondered how long this might have really been going on. Had she been playing me for years, and I was just too blind to see it? We rarely fought, but this time it blew up. I accused her outright and she stood her ground, denying everything. That was the moment my phone rang, some buddies wondering where I was and why I hadn't shown up at the course yet. For a moment, I thought about skipping the game, maybe even seeing a therapist instead. But in the end, I decided to go. I needed space. I needed to clear my head and think straight. But as I played, memories kept flooding back. I started questioning everything, whether she'd been unfaithful before, whether she'd manipulated me emotionally over the years. Slowly, things started adding up. And the more I pieced together, the more I realized just how long I'd been ignoring those signs. If I hadn't caught her and Victor like that, if I hadn't come back for that damn repair tool, I probably would have gone on believing whatever she told me. That thought scared the hell out of me. I began to reflect deeper, not as the love-struck young man I once was, but as someone older, someone with experience. I started revisiting old memories with new eyes. Back in college, during my last 2 years, Diane and I had lived together. It was my first real relationship, and I thought it was something special. Unique. But looking back now, I can see there were red flags, obvious signs I missed because I was too young, too in love, too naive. As I dug deeper into my past, I remembered certain gatherings, certain friends, certain moments that had never quite made sense. One memory in particular came to the surface, one involving my old best friend. We drifted apart over the years, and he eventually moved abroad. But back then, he was around, a lot. And now I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Diane and he had something going on. That memory started to fester. It kept me up at night. The weight of those long-buried suspicions was suddenly unbearable. And when Diane denied anything inappropriate with Victor, our grandson's friend, she dragged our kids and even our grandson into the whole mess. She twisted the story, hiding the crucial details and turning it all around on me. But I knew what I saw. She was lounging in a skimpy bikini, the kind she never wore. And Victor? Shirtless. Both of them standing way too close. She acted like it was nothing, just cleaning the pool. But the smell of intimacy still lingered in the room. I might have been blind in the past, but not anymore. This wasn't just suspicious. This was betrayal. And yet she tried to make me look like I was losing it, like I was some unhinged old man chasing ghosts. Even worse, I couldn't convince our daughters or our grandson that something was off. They didn't want to hear it. To them, she was just their sweet, reliable mother and grandmother. They couldn't imagine her doing something so deceitful. But I knew what I saw, her in revealing clothes, him in nothing but boxers. And no good explanation in sight. Our argument spiraled out of control. She played it like she was the victim and I was the unstable one. The weeks that followed were brutal. I barely ate. Lost weight fast. My mental health spiraled, and I started to worry I might actually hurt myself if I didn't get help. Meanwhile, Diane worked behind the scenes, turning our kids against me, painting me as some kind of lunatic. The truth is, I've never been one for conflict. I don't raise my voice, don't go looking for fights. I try to keep things private, deal with problems quietly. But this betrayal, pushed me past my breaking point. And that's when I decided to talk to someone. To get real help. Therapy. I needed clarity, and I needed to hold on to what little sense of self I had left. It hit me like a ton of bricks, the realization that maybe my marriage had been built on a false foundation all along. That thought haunted me more than anything. I started therapy, and my therapist introduced me to mindfulness, being present, aware, grounded. But no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't get the hang of it. My mind was too cluttered, too restless. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the betrayal, about everything I'd missed. Weeks went by, and I found myself avoiding the topic altogether. Her possible infidelity hovered like a storm cloud, but I wouldn't touch it. Wouldn't speak it. Wouldn't let it out. Until I couldn't hold it in anymore. One night the dam broke. I brought it up, not the incident with Victor, but something older. Something buried deeper. I told her about a memory from years ago, something from her younger days that never sat right with me. Her face went pale, like I'd just pulled the floor out from under her. At first, she flat out denied everything. Dismissed it like it was some kind of delusion. Said I was paranoid. Said I was making things up to punish her. It was classic deflection, trying to pin her guilt on my insecurities. But I stayed calm. I told her I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. And I wasn't going to let her twist this back on me. Still, she kept reaching, grasping at any excuse, any scapegoat, trying to justify her side of things without ever actually admitting to anything. It was like watching someone drown while refusing to admit they were in the water. That night ended with me breaking down. I mean full-on collapse, knees buckling, tears pouring out, gasping for air. I couldn't even speak. All I could do was cry. That seemed to shake her. She rushed over, held me, rocked me like a child. She said she was scared. Said she didn't understand what was happening to me. Said she thought I was going to leave her. But still, no confession. No real answers. Eventually, we started talking through things, trying to piece together what happened and when. But that only led to more confusion. Our memories didn't line up. Not even close. We remembered key moments, birthdays, trips, holidays, completely differently. And that shook me even more. How could two people share a life for decades and walk away with two totally different versions of it? As I opened up more, she mostly listened. Quiet. Introspective. Maybe surprised by how much I remembered, or maybe just trying to figure out how much she needed to admit without tipping the scale too far. She never came right out and said it. But one night she did suggest we meet with my therapist together, if I thought it would help. And then she said something that stuck with me, that telling me the full truth might change how I saw her forever. It reminded me of that line from A Few Good Men. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. And God help me, I wasn't sure I could. What if the reality was even worse than what my mind had already imagined? What if knowing everything crushed me more than the suspicion ever could? I also started thinking about our kids. About how she'd managed to pull them into this mess, using them as shields while hiding the ugliest parts of what she'd done. And I realized, deep down, she was ashamed. I'd known her long enough to see it in her eyes. So I decided to prove I wasn't crazy. I started recording our conversations. Not all of them, just the ones where we talked about what happened. I wanted something real. Tangible. Proof. And then one morning, I had a wild idea: call my old best friend. The one I hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. The one I now suspected had slept with my wife back when we were barely out of college. Until that moment, the thought of confronting him had never crossed my mind. I got his number from a mutual friend. My hands were shaking as I dialed, heart pounding like a drum. He lived overseas now, so I knew I was waking him up. His voice was groggy, confused. I said his name. He paused. Who is this? He asked. I took a breath. It's Tom, I said. There was a moment, the kind that stretches into forever. Then he repeated my name, like he wasn't sure he heard right. Once he realized it was really me, the tone shifted. We traded a few pleasantries, trying to squeeze 2 lost decades into 2 awkward minutes. But I couldn't put it off any longer. I had to ask. So I asked the question I never thought I'd have to ask. Do you remember Anna? There was a pause on the other end. I could feel his unease even through the phone. After a few seconds he responded, hesitant, cautious, and said yes. He remembered her. With a heavy heart and my voice barely above a whisper, I told him. She was my wife. I let those words hang there in the silence. I wanted him to feel the weight of it. After a moment, I went on. She passed away last night. Another long silence. It felt like time stopped. I imagined him frozen, mind spinning, trying to piece together what the hell had just happened. I took a shaky breath and pushed forward. I told him that before she died, she finally told me the truth. About everything. About him. I told him she confessed to their affair, the betrayal, the lies, the years I'd spent in the dark. I heard a sharp inhale on the other end. Then a deep sigh, slow and heavy. Before he could say anything, I cut him off. My voice cracked under the pressure, raw with emotion. "How could you do that to me?" I said. "You were my best friend." He broke down. I heard the sobs, the choking on his own guilt. And through the tears he admitted it. He said it had haunted him every day since. That it was a terrible mistake, one he regretted with every part of himself. I sat there listening, the pain in my chest building with every word. It hurt to hear, but I needed to hear it. And yes, I was still recording. I had to. It was the only way I could ever force Anna to stop pretending. To confront what she'd done. His voice trembled as he poured out his regret, asking for forgiveness he knew he didn't deserve. He said he'd let me down in the worst way imaginable. And I believed him. But I also knew it didn't change anything. The damage was already done. Our friendship, once built on years of loyalty and trust, was now just rubble. With a voice that didn't sound like mine, I said goodbye to John. I ended the call. I sat there for a long while, overwhelmed, grieving, not just for Anna, but for the life I thought I'd lived. The man I thought had been my brother. The marriage I thought had meant everything. Still, I had the proof. When Anna came home, I didn't say anything. I just played her the recording. She listened. And I watched her face drain of color. Her lips trembled. Her eyes welled up with tears. She couldn't deny it anymore. Caught in her own web, she broke down. She begged me not to share the recording with our children. Said she'd tell me everything if I promised to keep it between us. She confessed to the other two affairs, slowly, cautiously, like every word might shatter her. I agreed to keep the recording private. But I wrote down every word she said. Every date, every name, every detail. After she was done, we sat in silence. Then I told her we needed to separate. I needed space, time to think about what 4 decades of marriage really meant if it could be undone by a handful of lies. I was 64. She was 62. We'd built what I thought was a solid, unshakable life. But when I discovered she had some kind of emotional, maybe even physical, connection to our grandson's friend, all those memories got thrown into question. She denied it, of course. Swore up and down nothing happened. Said I was paranoid. Said I was ruining everything. Then, in a twist I didn't see coming, she actually suggested we get a divorce. Amicably, she said. But with me taking the blame. That way, our kids wouldn't hate her. I played along. Let her think I agreed. But I had those recordings. The very next day, my daughters came to talk. They were upset. They wanted us to work things out, to save the marriage. That's when I showed them the proof. I watched the realization wash over them. The betrayal, the lies, the years of false smiles, it all hit them at once. And Anna? She was furious. Said I broke our deal. Said I ruined everything. Now she's coming after everything. The house. The savings. Whatever she can get her hands on. But here's the thing, I don't care. I'm 64. As long as I have enough to get me through the next 25 years, I'll be fine. What I care about now is time. Peace. Love that's real. And my children. They're the legacy I'll leave behind. Some folks keep telling me to hold on, to preserve what we built. But those people don't understand. When you reach this age, you stop wanting to fight for broken things. You start wanting peace. Real peace. And maybe, just maybe, someone who truly loves you in return. When I look at her now, all I see is lies, manipulation, betrayal, deceit. I've hit a wall. Living in a reality built on her lies had become unbearable. After 3 long, draining months, we finalized the divorce. Anna moved in with our daughter. I sold the house and split the money fairly before taking off on a long-planned dream, to travel. It wasn't some grand escape, I just needed space to breathe again, to remember who I was before all this. Not long after, my daughters told me that Anna had spiraled. The shame of it all, what she'd done, what she'd lost, dragged her into a deep depression. Then came the stroke. It paralyzed her. I'd love to say I felt nothing. But I didn't. For a moment, I felt pure, white-hot anger. And then I felt empty. Later, during a phone call with Amy, my sister-in-law, I brought up something that had been bugging me. Why the hell had she invited him to the hospice? Trevor. Amy confirmed that she had, in fact, invited him. Said she tried to talk Elaine out of it, but couldn't. She wasn't sure what Elaine's reasons were, only that she'd insisted. I was shocked to hear that Susie, our daughter's 3-year-old, might be there too. Amy quickly explained Elaine had changed her mind. Said Susie was too young to be part of the conversation. Good. I dropped Susie off at her grandparents' and headed to the hospice with Amy. When we got there, a nurse named Cindy greeted us warmly. She told us Elaine was having a relatively good day, hadn't needed much morphine. I appreciated her kindness, but my stomach was twisted in knots. As soon as we stepped into Elaine's room, I saw him. Trevor. Sitting by the headboard like he belonged there. I didn't kiss Elaine. Just shook her hand and sat down beside Amy, far from Trevor. Elaine smiled, a soft, tired smile, and thanked us both for coming. She acknowledged how awkward this was. Said she only wanted what was best for Susie. I told her straight, Susie was my #1 priority. I glanced at Trevor. Still doesn't explain why he's here, I said. Elaine didn't answer right away. Instead, she thanked Amy for everything, called her an amazing sister, a rock during the darkest days. Said Amy had been there through the endless infertility testing, through the pain of IVF. Called her Susie's hero. Then she turned to the real reason we were there. She said she knew her relationship with Trevor had hurt me deeply. She wanted to talk about it. I cut in, my voice sharp. I asked why. Why him? Elaine admitted she'd been desperate, said that even though the doctors assured her my fertility wasn't the problem, she couldn't shake the fear. And Trevor, he worked in the office next to hers. One day, she was crying during lunch. He saw her. He sat with her. Held her hand. That's how it started. They became close. Too close. I scoffed and looked away. She kept going, said Trevor had offered to help, and I nearly lost it. Help? That's what we're calling it now. She claimed at first it was just about getting pregnant. That she was willing to try anything. But eventually, they fell in love. She said those words with no shame. Just laid them out like they were reasonable. I looked at her and asked the question burning in my throat. And you thought I'd just, what? Be okay with this? Accept both of you in my life? Elaine didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Just said she was afraid I'd leave. But when I didn't, when I stayed through the IVF, the pregnancy, the sleepless nights, she told herself I still loved her. Enough to forgive. Then she asked me for one last thing. She wanted me to let Trevor be part of Susie's life. She asked me, the man she betrayed, to give Trevor joint custody of our daughter once she was gone. I turned and looked at Trevor. He wasn't his usual smug self. For once, he looked nervous. Concerned. Maybe even scared. Elaine's request had caught me completely off guard, and when I glanced at Amy, she looked just as stunned as I was. Then I spoke, calm but resolute. No, I said. There's no way in hell I'm giving Trevor joint custody of Susie. Elaine looked at me like I'd just stabbed her. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she pulled herself together quickly. Then, with an eerie calm, she said something I'll never forget. You have to, she said. Because Susie isn't biologically yours. I froze. What? She nodded. Slowly. Almost painfully. Said she always wanted to have a child with each of us, me and Trevor. That she'd convinced Amy to use Trevor's analysis for the IVF, thinking she'd try again later with mine. But the cancer changed everything. The second chance would never come. My head was spinning. I turned to Amy, searching her face for answers, for some kind of lifeline. She gave me a steady look and nodded. Then she dropped the bombshell. I didn't do it, Amy said flatly. I never used Trevor's sample. I threw it out. What I used was yours. Trevor blinked, a slow, stupid smirk spreading across his face, until Amy cut him off cold. DNA won't help you, she said. Biologically, Susie is my daughter. Yours and mine. Elaine may have carried her, but that's all. Elaine's expression twisted. She turned on Amy, angry now, yelling that Amy had betrayed her. Amy stood her ground. Told her the truth, that what Elaine had asked for was selfish. That her whole genetic dead-end speech had been manipulative and flat-out wrong. Then came the biggest revelation of all. Amy explained that the eggs used in the IVF, the ones fertilized with my genetic material, were hers, not Elaine's. Which meant Susie was biologically ours. Amy then said clearly and calmly that once Elaine passed, we would get married. She would legally adopt the daughter who was already hers by blood. I turned back to Elaine. I made it crystal clear that I had zero interest in sharing my daughter, or my life, with Trevor. That ship had sailed the second she betrayed me. And I asked the question that had been burning in my gut. If you were so desperate to be with Trevor, why didn't you divorce me? Why go through IVF with me? Elaine didn't have an answer. I told her how angry I'd been when Amy confessed what she'd asked. How close I came to throwing her out that night. How Amy and I, in our darkest moments, had dreamed of revenge. But in the end, we chose something else. Something better. Elaine asked what happened to her eggs. Amy told her they were still in storage at the clinic. Frozen. Unlabeled. And that, one day, they might be donated to a woman in need. But if that happened, Trevor wouldn't have any claim to the child. None. Despite everything, Amy and I told Elaine we still loved her in our own way. We told her she had a choice, a final chance to do something right. We wanted her to spend her last days creating beautiful memories for Susie, not regrets. We wanted her to help shape the story we'd one day tell our daughter. She had a choice. We could tell Susie that her mother was a liar. A betrayer. A woman who tore our family apart. Or we could tell her about the brave woman who carried her into the world when we couldn't. Who gave her life and gave us a chance at being a family. A woman who, even in the end, chose to be a hero. I looked at Elaine and asked, one last time. Don't you want to be her hero, just once?